How to identify a proper gold stock, meaning how do you make money with gold stocks? How do you find out whether a gold stock is worth looking at? Does a project have legs? I'm joined by an economic geologist who does that for a living and has been doing so for quite a while. Great friend of mine. Really happy to have him here because I learn a lot every time we chat. It's Brent Cook. He's the economic geologist and senior advisor over at the Exploration Insight newsletter. Brent, it's great to see you again. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks. Glad to be up here.
It's awesome. Like I always love catching up with you. Like economic geologist, you look at things a bit different than everybody else, right?
Yeah.
Does a project actually have legs?
Yeah, so, that's my job. That's my history.
Absolutely. You've been doing it for a few years. So,
a
few, right? Well, we're up here in Vancouver, so thanks so much for coming to the studio here. Let's start talking about the conference. We have to a little bit. And about the mood and things you've seen. I was positively surprised. It was super busy. I guess $300 uptick in gold helps.
Yeah, the VRIC it's a good show. It's well organized by Jay. I'm impressed by his organizational abilities and the people he brings in. Every January in Vancouver, I've been to these conferences, and it's always positive. Usually not for good reason, but it's just the way Vancouver is. Then February rolls around, things start going down. Generally, we hit PDAC, and that starts going down, the curse there. Then we look at summer. Then summer doldrums are coming. September, we get a little bit of a run, and then the rest of the year, it's tax loss selling. I think this year is going to be different. I think the fundamentals are lining up for precious metals as well as base metals, and I think we're going to have a good year for a change.
Yeah, it feels like it. Like the vibe was phenomenal down at the
definitely
conference.
was.
It was
a lot
like,
of
and I've
people.
been to a lot of these conferences, like the January ones. Yes, the vibe is nice because people usually have money to spend in January because of all the tax loss selling you mentioned. But was there did you identify an underlying theme or a trend? Like I've seen a few lithium companies after,
Well, definitely lithium's on a roll. I think it's one of these ones that's going to go up and down like cobalt did, tin did.
Yeah.
Cannabis did, that sort of thing. There's no shortage of lithium in the world. But those stocks have done well. I don't spend much time on them. I'm more focused on precious metals and copper, and specifically. I think that's where the macro trends are taking us.
Copper is an interesting one, and big fan of it personally. Like I think it's going to go $5. I think is back in the cards per pound. Are you looking at a certain area, I wouldn't say projects, but like jurisdictions?
Well, certainly you've got to go where the copper is. I think Arizona is a good place. There's so many things.
It's a big if.
If you've got the water rights, if you got the ground control, that sort of thing. Like a company like Arizona Sonora Copper, we've bought that in the past. I visited it with Joe Mazumdar, and they've got that lined up. So that's a good project. However, others down there don't have those lined up. So it comes down to specifics. Certainly the Andes are a great place to be. I think over in Serbia, the Carpathian region, there's certainly some potential there. So that's sort of where I'm focused.
Do you see any new companies sort of popping up there? Like you mentioned Arizona Sonora, and like any new projects? They're all established. It's an old mine, the Cactus Mine.
I haven't. Arizona's been hit pretty damn hard. And now people are chasing undercover on terrain that's been, ripped apart. So it's difficult to kind of piece that back together. To my knowledge, I haven't seen anything really new. Ivanhoe Electric,
okay.
They're drilling out the down dip portion of what Arizona Sonora's got. But I'm not aware of anything really new.
No, nothing comes to mind.
Yeah.
It's been, I don't know, walking the conference or looking at the list of exhibitors. And it sounds weird, but I've been doing this for 12 years now. I didn't see any new names. Or very, very few.
Yeah.
Still, there's not a lot. Like we've seen that in 2016, a lot of new names popped up. Management teams came back when there was a bit of a hype in the market, but I haven't seen it the last, let's say, 12 months. Of course, markets were dire, but even now.
I saw new companies I wasn't aware of, but by and large, that conference, the exhibitors are just the usual Vancouver crowd who have got their projects and are trying to retread them or, get into something new in terms of commodity.
Yeah.
But there were some good companies there as well.
Okay. So Brent, while we're on the topic of a conference, did you attend with an agenda in mind? Are you seeking out a new investment, or in particular, was there a focus?
Yeah, in general, that's why I come up here. I'm looking to where to invest my own money. I also work with a couple of funds, so if I see something that might interest them, I'll alert them to it. I'm always up here trying to help Joe drum up new subscribers, which you know his newsletter. It's the best out there in terms of someone who knows geology in the market.
Oh, by a long shot. Yeah.
So that's my focus. Is just to walk around and find new ideas as well as check in on things I own.
Yeah. Anything that alerted you? Anything that's worth following up on tomorrow when you're back home and dive deeper?
I spent some time with Montage Gold.
Okay.
I was not aware of what they were doing. I'd seen the large low-grade deposit in the Ivory Coast, yet that seemed too low-grade to me. But the recent drill results, if they can pull something together with a high grade, to kick this thing off, it's a big system that I was impressed with that.
Okay.
What was that one in Australia that Alistair's run? Inflection. Yeah. I like what they're doing. Very, very grassroots conceptual stuff in Australia. That's the sort of thing I'm looking for. Same group, Headwater Gold, which I'm a technical advisor to. Really conceptual, grassroots, new ideas that are being tested. That's what we're after.
Yeah. Early days, like it's always tough to make money on those stocks, though. It's like I've met Alistair, for example, since you brought it up a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
The stock hasn't done anything, and it's tough to finance, right? Not just like the market has been well, like
yeah, but still, it takes time to make a discovery. You can't just walk up and go bingo, which is the problem with the whole Vancouver scene. I think is that people that most of the retail and a lot of the other people that put money into a placement as such, they want results within 4 months so they can get off their stock. Whereas real discovery takes work, and it's a long-term process. It's it's science. It's not anything else. So someone like Headwater, it's conceptual, and you've got to test your ideas and make sure they work. And I've made most of my money on very early stage projects that continue to deliver and confirm my theses and their theses. That's the key. And when it stops confirming your theses, that's when you sell. And often you've got the rise anyway because people get excited. Yet you can pick this isn't going to work because either the metallurgy or it's killed off at depth or something, and people don't realize that.
Yeah. Patience. Somebody mentioned that a few days ago. It's like patience. You got to have patience.
And patience helps a lot.
Yeah. Oh, it was Rick. It was Rick Rule who was sitting in your in your chair. We talked about patience and how he got saved one time by not being able to get the ledger off his stock in time, and he had to hold it for much longer than he would have probably held it.
Yeah, I've got one example like that. Then I've got a number of others. Being a U.S. resident, you're stuck with the legend, and then the Canadians are bailing while you're stuck.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And sometimes saves you, though. It's not always a good thing. We were talking about financings yesterday as well. You attended my presentation where I was talking about it. So you brought up metallurgy. I remember you gave a presentation on metallurgy at the conference. Like, I know it's not the most favorable topic, and maybe a few of our listeners might be tuning out now, but what was the contact?
Oh, this is terribly exciting, Kai. Basically, what I went through is what the difference is between refractory, non-refractory sulfide, and oxidized material. And basically, if it's refractory, the gold is within the actual matrix of the crystal, and you've got to break that crystal apart. That takes a lot of energy, a roaster of some sort, so that's a huge capex. If the gold is on the grains of the sulfide, say pyrite, you can crush it and grind it, and it's exposed to the sun right away. That's easier. And if it's been oxidized, basically the pyrite's been turned to rust, the gold has been liberated by nature, and that's much cheaper to operate. So that affects the grades that you're seeing released in drill results. So a 0.6 gram oxide may be way better than a 5 gram refractory
project.
Yeah.
What'd you talk the other 19 minutes about?
I don't remember.
No, it's interesting because grade, like we often talked about, like how to interpret a news release.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly.
They come out, you see the headlines, and you meant Montage, like a 0.6 gram deposit, like doesn't sound terribly exciting. And Marigold, for example, in Nevada is mining with a cutoff of 0.15, I think.
Right.
Like, how does that work, right?
Yeah.
So
well, and another thing you've always got to keep in mind is these companies will say, well, this deposit is being mined and it's only 0.3% copper. But that's built. The capex has been sunk. But if you got a large 0.3% copper deposit sitting in BC somewhere, you're looking at, I don't know, $1 billion to build it. That's not going to be covered by 0.3% copper.
It's impossible.
It's unlikely.
You brought up BC. You said we got to go where the copper is, but we got to talk jurisdictions quick. It was this morning. Biden said he's going to ban a gold mine, or never going to give a permit to a gold mine in Alaska. And Robert Friedland, I think, retweeted it and said we got to rethink jurisdictional risk.
That is the Pebble deposit, and we've known for decades that that's going to be a difficult one, and it should come as no surprise that that's not going to happen. Everybody up there almost is against it. It's just a bad place to be trying to build a mine. I mean, you got to think about those things before you can go there and spend your millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, and some people don't.
But rethinking jurisdictional risk, I think he has a point. Like one of my top stock picks lately was Arras Minerals, because I think I found something that everybody's been ignoring, or that the perception is wrong of, that could be changing. This is Kazakhstan, the project in Kazakhstan, and everybody thinks, well, Kazakhstan's close to Russia, like you can never touch it, right?
Yeah, well, that's not right. I think that's a good jurisdiction. Panama. I mean, okay, so First Quantum built the huge copper mine Cobre Grande in Panama for $6 billion or something. And now the government's deciding they want a bigger piece of the action. Well, they're stuck. So jurisdictional risk is everywhere. Some places less so than others, but it's something you got to keep in the back of your mind.
Has your jurisdictional risk profile changed a little bit? Like, besides the obvious places you wouldn't go to, like Bolivia or Venezuela, but...
Bolivia, I think, is a good place. I think it's getting better.
Okay.
I think it's getting better.
So that's what I mean by changing, actually. Like,
yes.
A bit of a perception change, maybe.
Yeah, Bolivia is improving, in my opinion. Some of the countries in West Africa are okay. Others are going worse. And that's got to do with more with violence and things like that. I think Eastern Europe is a good place. Scandinavia is a great place. Those places I think are good. Nevada's good. No. Idaho's good, depending on where you're at. You know, it comes down to the local jurisdiction as well.
Okay. Like, I introduced you as an economic geologist, so the next question I have to ask you is, like, do you see more economic deposits being found right now? Are we spending money wisely? Do you see the pipeline filling again after, like, neglect? This
is the biggest problem we face, and it's positive for us looking at in the junior sector is it now takes, let's say we make a discovery in British Columbia on a copper deposit today. It's going to be 10 to 20 years before that's into production. It's getting much harder to find deposits because what's at surface has mostly been found. So we're looking undercover, blind, basically. That means it costs a lot more just to test your ideas. Your strip ratio and such is going to be bigger. Your permitting is going to be a longer process. You've got to deal with lots of ESG issues. You've got to deal with water issues. I mean, we're not finding enough new deposits to replace what we're mining and what the demand increase is going to be. So the price is going to go up, and I think those are the fundamentals that are going to do us well in this sector.
I think I asked you the question in June about 2021. We raised $6.4 billion. Last year we raised 4.1, so a drop of 33%, one third. But it's still $4 billion, which is still a lot of money, actually. If you look at 2013 or 15 in comparison, is that money being spent? Like, I'm asking you the same question. Like, have you seen an improvement in spending, like, the last 12 months? Like, has that changed?
I think in the junior space, we've seen money go in general to competent people doing intelligent things. I mean, there's still a lot of waste. Unfortunately, one of the business models here in Vancouver is pick up some old dog, rename it, and re-drill the same hole, hoping to get a share price jump and you can get off. That still happens, and it happens way too often. But there are some new young people coming into the sector that are doing real exploration with new ideas and doing good, and I'm glad to see that happen. You take someone like Zach Flood at Kenorland. really doing new conceptual exploration. The guys at Headwater, same thing. That's good to see.
Exciting, yeah. Because I was having that conversation with Rick as well, like offline, about like who's the next mining, or the next mining moguls or titans or whatever you want to call it, like the next guard. I don't know what you would call it. Like Rick turning 70 this week. Ross Beatty's over 70.
Who's
like,
the next? Who's going to be the next lucky son of a bitch?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, right. But you mentioned a couple names there.
Yeah,
He's doing the right thing with a chance at success.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I find that really interesting. Like, but we had a hard time. Even like I was talking with somebody in London the other day. Like we had a hard time quickly coming up with a list though.
Yeah.
That we would believe in.
Well, I if I spent some time, I could come up with a list. The two I just mentioned certainly qualify. And there's others, for
but
sure.
You have to think hard about it. Like we came up after a while of discussion, we came up with a decent list as well, but it took a minute.
Well, there's not a lot of new people coming into the sector, young people, for a lot of reasons. And that's another problem we've got is these companies, they're going to have to start training people in the countries they're working in to fill the jobs, because we're not going to have that many new quality mining and exploration geologists coming out of North America. It's just not a popular field.
Got to make it sexy again somehow.
Good luck.
Yeah, seriously. It's like the political tide is turned against our sector anyway. So that's not working. Brent, I can't let you go without asking for some stock picks as well. I have to ask. You mentioned Arizona Sonoran. I know that's one of your top picks.
Yeah, that one, Joe and I both visited, and it's in the Exploration Insights portfolio. Headwater Gold, for sure, is one that's we're pretty keen on. I've been there. Joe's going to visit it later this year when snow stops flying. What's the third?
Any outliers? Those were copper, gold?
Well, Mundoro.
Okay.
Very well-run prospect generator. Number of joint ventures with major mining companies in Serbia and Bulgaria.
They just done a deal with BHP.
They did a deal with BHP
recently.
I mean, that's a dirt cheap stock. If they can pull a discovery, that stock's going to go from 18 cents to $1.80 like that.
They've been at it for a while too.
It takes
in Serbia.
It takes time.
Patience. Awesome, Brent. Fantastic conversation. Always amazing insights. Really appreciate it. And where can we find more?
Yeah, thanks, Kai. ExplorationInsights.com. That's the website. Joe Mazumdar writes the best newsletter out there if you're interested in really finding out what's going on and how projects are being run. And there's lots of free information on there as well, interviews and write-ups he's done. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a subscriber, so happily recommended, of course. Fantastic. Everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you found this conversation useful. I definitely did. Let us know in the comments below. How are you investing? Where are you spending your time and money right now? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's that little square right underneath the video or that little circle at the bottom of the corner. Make sure to do that because I know roughly 85% of you watching are not subscribed. Let's change that. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll be back with lots more.